Good morning. It's Burger Labor Day today. Today we have our friend TopTick on. How you doing, TopTick?
Doing great.
So while Cozy's fixing some of that,
I think I'm good now.
yeah, it sounds good. Good morning, Cozy.
G morning.
Let's start off by giving a little bit of a background. TopTick, give a little bit of a background to yourself. We've known each other for many moons. Met in real life at a Masari conference once, but part of the crew. Give a little bit of background on yourself.
Sure. So I come from TradFi, kind of just normal long short equity lifer. So I'm mostly looking at stocks, but I've always been kind of a fan of kind of the history of kind of speculative markets and manias. I actually had my degree held up because I had a library book checked out on the South Sea bubble, and so needless to say, the combination of kind of speculative manias and kind of frontier and efficient markets just led me to crypto kind of naturally. And so I've been trying to kind of fit the round peg of TradFi, traditional fundamental value analysis, into the square peg of crypto and just having fun. That's pretty much the backstory.
Nice. So I think we'll mix things up a little bit today. I think that if we have time at the end, we'll cover some news, topical items. But we'll just start out just shooting the shit. I know there's a few things that you kind of want to talk about. This the burp index is maybe I'm too boomer nowadays. I don't know, but the burp index is something that's interesting to me. It's the first time I heard it was with you.
Well, yeah, it's just I made it up. Oh. Because there's everyone's looking for. Initially, there's FANG within the stock market, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, of the leading stocks, and then the guy from, I think it was Framework Ventures, I can't remember. He actually had a pretty good podcast on Bankless. I know that's some people aren't the biggest fans, but I thought it was pretty good, where he came up with the smell index of kind of the resurgence of DeFi for this cycle, and it was Aesthetix, Maker, Ethereum, Lido, and Link. And then kind of given the market environment we've been in year to date, where you've seen stablecoin outflows, and so less money coming on into crypto, and just the only real major capital flow has been from exchange to on-chain. And so we've had the biggest kind of success stories of tokens launched year to date, and people have been calling it on-chain summer. So I kind of made an index of the leading kind of on-chain tokens, and so you have to arrange them into stupid words. So I did BURP. The B is for ticker symbol Bitcoin, Harry Potter, Obama, Sonic, Inu. U is Unibot, R is Rollbit, and P is Pepe. And they're all kind of interesting. All of them basically can't be listed on exchanges for various reasons. For Bitcoin, obviously with that ticker symbol, that's just too confusing for customers, so Coinbase is never going to list that. Unibot has the trading taxes, so it costs 5% in transaction tax to both buy and sell it. And I don't think historically exchanges have ever listed those. R, Rollbit, RLB, that's a big competitor of mysterious regulatory background, and also a casino. So I don't know if Binance is really interested in listing their largest competitor, and definitely none of the U.S. exchanges are going to list it. And then P, Pepe, is kind of the other meme coin in the group, and there was nothing wrong with getting that listed. So it got listed within 2 weeks and rocketed to over $1 billion in market cap. And so that's kind of just the names we've been I've been looking at in terms of these on-chain leaders, and they've all had kind of various little bits of drama recently. I think we were going to talk about maybe, you had Unibot with some of the compete, and it launched its own kind of meta with all these different Telegram and Discord bot tokens. And now they've got some competitors listing in the next week that's kind of led to a little bit of a drawdown there. And then I guess today we might also mention Rollbit. You saw Stake had something of an exploit or something like that. I saw it was like $15 million. And so
40 mil across other chains, I guess.
Whew. Wow. Wow, that's pretty big news. Like I would imagine. I mean,
Just a rumor that I read is that across like all the chains combined, it was closer to 40, but I didn't sleuth around, so cannot confirm.
yeah, Stake was. I mean, they're gigantic. There was a Financial Times article talking about their financials from just last year, and I want to say I might be getting this confused with the article about OnlyFans and their revenue, but it's somewhere in the range of like $500 million to $1 billion in revenue, and they obviously had a lot of money because they were sponsoring Drake and some other people. So that's that. Yeah, it's pretty big.
Do you really think that touching on what you were saying about Bitcoin, do you really think that the ticker is going to deter centralized exchanges from listing it and earning fees when, this has happened plenty of times in the past? Like you can just look at like Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin SV, like all of those cause some type of contention at exchanges via their tickers, them having the name Bitcoin, and they found ways around all of that. I'm trying to think of what exchange did list Bitcoin. It might have been like MEXC or like, one of the...
I think it was Poloniex.
It was someone, if it was Poloniex, that would surprise me, but I felt like it may have been Poloniex, but I felt like it was someone that wasn't on the, top 2 tiers.
Yeah,
and
they changed the ticker symbol to Harry.
Yeah, exactly. And like no one was happy about that, but at the end of the day, like it's still on the exchange to be traded. So why do you think that other exchanges wouldn't follow suit if volume and interest, remained high?
Yeah, because that's usually just the hurdle is like, will you attract volume that we can generate fees on? And that's kind of tends to be what leads these exchanges to list tokens. And I didn't think about the all the different Bitcoin forks, the Bitcoin Cash, SV, and Black and Diamond and all those other ones from the last cycle. And so I guess they'd have to the ticker symbol could not be Bitcoin though, just because if Coinbase is like trying to position themselves as kind of like a curated entry to the crypto ecosystem for regular people that don't know kind of what they're doing. I go on CoinGecko, I search the word Bitcoin, which is something that someone new to crypto signing up for a Coinbase account might do. And if something other than BTC shows up, that could eventually be, that could be a problem because,
it would be a big problem. There 100% people would buy it thinking that it was like cheap Bitcoin or there was some error and they were somehow getting like a massive deal. like there would 100% be people doing that. And even if they didn't do it purposely, there'd be people trying to scam Coinbase by exploiting the ability to say that you had fallen for something like that.
Also, the name of the token. So it's like, okay, so we won't do ticker symbol Bitcoin. That would be bad. And so it's like, what's your next move? It's like, oh, we'll use the intellectual property of Harry Potter, or Obama, or Sonic the Hedgehog. It's just there's I think because by its nature, and that's what makes the joke so funny. I mean, that's literally the only reason I bought it initially, way back in the day. It was just like, I want to have this in my wallet because I just look at that and it's just fun to me. And like the joke is like, there's like a picture of some backpack from like Asia that's got a bunch of pirated stuff where it just says Harry Potter and then Obama, and then has a picture of Sonic the Hedgehog in like weird primary colors, and then the number 10 on his belly. And so someone made Harry Potter, Obama, Sonic 10 Inu. And the ticker symbol, because it's the joke's about some sort of counterfeit bag, is Bitcoin. And what's even funnier is like it's not even the first Harry Potter, Obama, Sonic 10 Inu.
No, there's one on BSC.
Yeah, like a year ago. But that I think I actually looked at like buying that thing as like kind of like almost like a token NFT just to have the original. But like the transaction tax on it's like 10%, which that's why most transaction tax coins die. And then this one, the joke was still new to most people and it was on Ethereum, and they didn't have any transaction taxes, so it kind of just took off. The whole thing is just like a giant on-chain inside joke that it's just, I don't know how you would get over all the different hurdles to getting something like that listed, just because the words in it itself are copyrighted and the ticker symbol is Bitcoin. It's just, I don't know. I'm not sure if I can think of a way to overcome all those different hurdles if I'm like, especially if I'm like a U.S. exchange or something like that.
All right, since I'm on my devil's advocate arc right now, going into now Unibot, being that the majority of coins that have some type of tax attached to them, don't last or have issues with growth, and normally the token is not necessarily associated to or it doesn't run in parity all the time with the value that the protocol or the product itself may bring. We'll look at, outside of Maker's little run that they had, you can look at like Maker historically as like a good example of that, right? Like one of the most valuable protocols in DeFi, like one of the backbones, you could kind of say. And like people disrespect that chart like left and right. So with tokens with taxes, why is it with Unibot that, for most projects, people will look at them, especially when they're DEX native projects, they will look more at them isolated and say like, okay, but like the coin is still structurally this, and we don't need the coin to do this. Do you think it's because of the amount of volume and value accrual that token holders are getting? Or do you think that there's something else, like some other secret sauce that is making it special? Or, I mean, it's getting abused right now, but that made it special, I should say.
That made Unibot special in that, like, it's a transaction tax coin that's, like, not just immediately dying.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting kind of feature because normally, like, previously the people that tried to do transaction taxes, they're kind of just like, they're just kind of joke coins. Like I think they're literally like the original one was called like Big Bomb, because like it would just burn all the tokens, and then what happens? It's actually tied to like kind of a flywheel that actually has some external like fee source. And like I don't know, I was thinking of these transaction taxes as like kind of an incentivization to holders, where it's like, okay, what do people in Telegram complain about? Oh, everyone's dumping or whatever. And so like you've got this thing that benefits people that buy and don't sell. And there's an external source of fees because people use Unibot, and there's actual trading fees on top of that give you an incentive to also hold the token. And if you dump, we clip 5% of it, and some of that goes back to the people that hold the token. And it's kind of interesting, like the way I was thinking about it was like, if you just had a pure coin that just had transaction taxes and all the taxes went back to holders, it's almost like an LP position without like any impermanent loss, because you're just clipping like 5% of the majority of the transaction fee associated with trading, and then it just goes back. But no, I mean, I think the reason it's survived is that it's tied to an actual product with usage that generates fees that go back to like, token holders. Maker just did a buyback and burn, which I think is why it's able to be listed on like Coinbase and all these other exchanges. And it's a way for like, because if you just owned Unibot, let's imagine they just got, and I think they eventually will, just got rid of the transaction tax. And you could just, hold Unibot and just claim your share of the fees on the little Unibot website. But if you buy Unibot they still, with that structure, Coinbase isn't going to list it. But let's say you bought it on like Binance, you as a Unibot holder of Binance don't really get to benefit from those transaction fees.
Yeah.
They have staking now on Binance.
They'll probably offer it.
Yeah, they have to do some sort of pass through or something. I don't know.
They're one of the few exchanges that like would understand that like that's a feature that users will still use the product for versus using the centralized exchange for. I think it's because they're of the multi-layered kind of tax, you could say, right? Because as a holder, in most tax coins, you're just getting like the native protocol token back. So it's like you're eating like you're getting in permanent loss, but you're also like getting these rewards that are outsized, and if it can outpace, then like you're in a good position, but majority of the times you don't. But with this, you're getting the base token that you want in the first place. You're getting ETH, so you're psychologically seeing that like you're making this additional money in like your base currency.
In a way, Ethereum after in proof of stake is kind of a transaction tax coin. They're like very small, like because a portion of transaction fees do go to people staking now. So in a very, very, very small way, Ethereum is bought into this a little bit.
Yes. Everything's a tax coin. Everyone gets taxed.
But yeah, I think like for Unibot to be listed, although I think someone said SafeMoon got listed somewhere and that has a transaction tax. I don't know.
Yeah, SafeMoon was definitely listed. Remember, that's what
SafeMoon was everywhere.
That's what Portnoy bought.
Did he really?
Yeah,
I missed that.
Yeah, when he did his little crypto, his one time he ventured into crypto, he bought SafeMoon. I thought
SafeMoon still has a $70 million market cap. That's incredible. On BSC.
Christ.
There's a bunch during that era, dude. There's like the SafeMoons, the FPGs,
how's Cumrocket doing right now?
I don't know. That made me think back whenever we were that brief meta of 2 days where it went from hamster racing to cockfighting, and I was reminiscing on the good old the much more innocent days of just Cumrocket coin.
I was really beginning to question like what we were all doing with our free time.
Yeah, and then we just moved on to trading literal people on Friendtech.
Yeah. We've talked about Friendtech quite a bit over the last eight episodes. What's your experience been so far? What are you kind of looking forward to there?
I'm looking forward to the airdrop. No, it's been laggy but steadily improving. There's a hack, and I'll have to find it. Not a hack, but to the extent that I'm a hacker, I use Inspect Element, and you can spoof a mobile browser so that you can kind of get it as like a desktop application, and then it's way snappier, way faster. I don't have to worry about the app eating my messages after I type up some long diatribe and hit send, and then it just doesn't show back up in my chat. But it's been interesting. It's been cool. I think. I mean, you just look at some of these bots that just track like who's signing up based on Twitter, and it's like there isn't anything in crypto that's getting that inflow of kind of new users that I'm aware of. So
there isn't. It's nothing close. Yeah.
And I do think it's like the most obvious. Like there's been threads and threads and threads about how to get your Linea airdrop, how to get your layer 0, your whatever chain that no one's using right now, like ZK Stark. I'm sorry.
Whatever.
Yeah, but this one's like actually like it's actually worth grinding. Like I used to hate that meta where it was like people you had to like type in Discord to level up and then get on the whitelist. And like this is kind of like a really mature version of it because it's like it's rewarding you for like being in all these chat rooms, being active in them. I think most of it is just holding really high value accounts, but I think this one's absolutely worth grinding for and trying to get as many of those points as possible. And the reason I think that is just it's got more users than almost anything. It's actually generating fees. It's actually new and unique, and they actually, they got an investment from Paradigm and then immediately changed the shares word to keys, so you have keys to all your different friends in these chat rooms. But the one thing they didn't change is the little tab that says airdrop, where you get your weekly points. So I think you can do, and I've tweeted about this, you can kind of do the math where it's like, okay, what percentage of the FTV do we think go to airdrop? And historically that's been anywhere from 10 to as high as 40%. And then what do you think the FTV of this thing would be if it were trading right now? And then, hey, in 6 months, do you think we'll be in a bull market? And where do you think the FTV would be there? and you can come up with a range of like what these things are worth because they're going to divvy out, I think, 100 million points in total. So I don't know, like, let's say this thing, I honestly think like in a bull market, FTV would be north of $1 billion, but you know, just call it like.
No, I think they need a little bit more. I mean, I agree with you. Like in a bull market, sure. Especially like
I don't think right now, no. Right now, I do think it'd be like $100 million FTV pretty easily. Just comparing it to like almost anything else.
It's
in
beating
that,
anything
like,
in terms of daily active users, and there's plenty of projects north of 100 million that don't have anywhere near the usage.
Yeah. So like even if it was like 100 million FTV and only 20% went to like airdrop, you divide that by 100 million, that's 20 cents a point, you know? And I don't know, I got like 6,000 points last week. Like that's like $1,200 without like a whole lot of effort. And, you know, obviously people like Ansem and Elle and all them are just going to retire off this, but whatever. But it's like a pretty big opportunity in terms of like airdrop that like isn't getting the attention that people like. There's an entire meta of airdrop bots right now trying to farm layer 0 bot, you know, airdrops, like speculative airdrops that have probably already been gamed to death. And here's one that like is kind of just staring you in the face, and it's not getting as much attention. And I hope it doesn't, actually, for selfish reasons. I hope the users dwindle, but like by the time you get to month 6 and like and if we actually get a token and an airdrop and people are talking about like, you know, these 6-figure paychecks they got, like you'll see the usage pick right back up and people will be looking for the next friend tech. So I think like, you know, until on-chain, you know, money comes back to crypto, you know, you start seeing stablecoin inflows. I think this is a great place to like, you know, waste some time and try to grind for points.
They enabled credit card purchases, I think, today or yesterday.
Yeah,
so you don't even need it. Like they completely abstracted away the onboarding flow. Their onboarding, I still haven't signed up, but the onboarding flow is, I think, unparalleled in terms of they actually are using like some of the new infrastructure that's available for a seamless user experience, right? And
yeah, they use
credit card transactions.
Yeah, so like it's kind of like, and I knew they would eventually. Like I was like, that was like the last step basically, because they use privy account abstraction where I forget they split the private key into like 3 pieces or whatever.
Yeah, sharding,
yeah, like once you like log in, it creates the wallet for you based on like your Twitter API. And then like the last step was just like, you know, getting that initial funding in base ETH. And then they eventually like, you know, you don't even need to be on base. We'll bridge it for you. And it's like, well, the last step is just you're on your phone. You don't even need to use the App Store, which is also cool. I had used one of these progressive web apps before. And I think it's a pretty interesting way to get around the App Store, the iOS one especially.
People don't realize how strict the App Store can really be. Like the thing is that with app submissions to the App Store, there's not it's not like a process that's standardized that, you know, you're dealing with like a robot that's checking through, you know, the code and making sure that like it's just not malware. You're getting a human that reviews it and then, you know, decides whether or not your app meets the requirements or breaks any of their rules. So every time that you submit an update to the App Store, you have a new human look over it. And at any time, one of those humans could just not like crypto, or could, and it happens all the time. Like when I used to work for like an application that was, you know, pushing updates to the App Store all the time, their way around it was that anything that wasn't super critical, they just did an over-the-air update. And then anything that was a larger update, they would push that to the App Store because there were a lot of times that they would get a reviewer that would deny the app because of, you know, something to do with, you know, how the wallet functioned that they're interpreting a way that nobody else did.
Well, what I had read was that they were trying for some of these prior NFT apps that wanted to get on the iOS App Store, was they wanted to take like the 30% cut of transactions, like
on every transaction you make, even if you're paying gas,
and so that's like, you know, like I think that was like one of the biggest hurdles to Uniswap getting their wallet on the iOS store was like, it's like, oh, you're doing trades, well, like, you know, and that's like historically, like if you try to sign up for Spotify, they've always had these workarounds so that the payment never goes through the actual mobile app, where it's like, hey, check your email.
Yeah,
and
but
we'll give
for
you a
like
payment.
for like banking apps, if you were to wire money to your friend, it's not like the app store takes it. So I think that was like the reasoning they were able to push like Uniswap
Yeah.
through. But I will say that like we've been looking at PWAs for a bit because DeFi devs, and the tech hasn't matured in a way, both from the PWA side. For an iOS app, they've only allowed notifications to come directly through a Safari app for, I don't know, less than 6 months, and then the account abstraction, right? So this is like the first to kind of use this new tech that's literally been around. Like the account abstraction components has been around for what, like 3 months maybe. That like the Privy just did open beta less than like 3 months ago, I think, to be able to API like programmatically set up these accounts. So there's a few that do it now. There's like Portal, there's Privy, but yeah, it's the tech is relatively new, and they're the first ones to just jump on it and do it. But yeah, I think there's plenty of runway for friend tech. Like they're just going to continue to push updates. They're going to continue to penetrate different markets.
And yeah, with credit card onboarding, like that's, you now have an app, and I think this is pretty much the first time where, I guess outside TopShot, I guess TopShot kind of pulled it off, but I don't think that was an app at any point in time. But like you now have an app where the whole backend, it's a crypto app. It's a DeFi crypto app. They're all smart contracts where you could sign up as a new user, fund it, and start using it. And you might never know it's actually, has anything to do with crypto, which is kind of like, that's the kind of end state that a lot of people have been pushing.
Yeah. Yeah. And the people keep on building on top of it. With that, do you guys see the MetaKey thing that came out? Me and Cozy actually on our first stream, we talked about this being one of the things that I brought up as being a potential future issue, and like within a week, someone had built it.
It like aggregates all the chats. Is that how that?
Yeah, it's a Discord that each channel they essentially they buy one share of all these different people, and then you pay them. Because I knew it was going to happen because I know this exists in OnlyFans.
Yeah. There's a token that does the same thing. I'm in that Discord just because I prefer Discord, and the app's faster, and it's like really fast to just like go through and check all the top chat rooms, even if I don't own the keys. But I think it actually is like a positive EV to actually own all these high value keys anyway. But I just would prefer like checking a whole bunch of different Discord chats, and one of the keys they own was mine, so, which is kind of a funny ethical thing. I didn't really care. As long as these things proliferate, people can buy more. And if you really want to actually, chat in the room, you need to own the key.
Yeah.
But I used it to check the latency of these things, because I would just like send something in my room and then see like how long it took to populate on the Discord. And it was like 20 seconds. I was kind of impressed.
That's pretty good, actually. Yeah, I think that it depends on like we'll see what happens with the pricing, because if you're really wanting to pay for access, right? Like as you get to the ends of the tails in terms of pricing, that like you'll still get that, people will still pay that. But if you're not looking for the access, I can see a venue in which these like Discord room type, they have a market.
Yeah, I started getting a little worried when people were comparing Racer and Kobe keys to peak bull market Bored Ape prices. But I mean, it's kind of interesting where like there's actually more utility from those keys than like a Bored Ape. And yeah, I guess 2021 was just a crazy time.
Shout out to Punk.
I forget what the top price was, but for a 10,000 PFP collection of just like JPEGs.
I mean, I think Punks and Bored Apes probably definitely are like the top of that list of what people are and were paying. Like, what did Apes top out at in the high hundreds?
Yeah.
Was it over 100 ETH?
No, it was 100K in US dollars. I think was the floor at one point. At the peak, I think it was 40 ETH, and whatever that translated to at the time, it was like 100K in USD. I think was the floor at one point.
I do think punks survive. The problem is if you're like really bullish on ETH, it just makes it really hard for these things to keep going up in ETH.
There was just 110 ETH sale on one of the 3D glass masked like lady punks the other day. Whenever I see those, it always like blows my mind that people are still spending like that right now on punks, I guess. I mean, like I totally think punks still survive, but I always try to look at NFT stuff now in a way of like, just like you would look at a shitcoin, like, is this going to outpace ETH? I was just talking to DK about this before we started the stream. Like, a lot of the ones that I have that kind of have provenance, even though I don't need the ETH from them, I just think to myself, like, why do I care to hold this, right? Like, there's so much more I could do with the ETH, and are they really going to outpace ETH? Like, probably not for most of them, but if you sell it as a collection to the right person, then does it matter whether it's in Ether in the NFT right now? Yeah, I don't know. Things I think about.
Well, yeah, it's just if you're like bullish ETH, you've seen this thing go from like $10 to $100 to $1,000, and then like if you think Ethereum goes to like $10,000 someday, it's going to be really hard for a piece of art that's part of a series of over like 1,000 to maintain much above like 10 ETH, because like you would need this to be considered like a timeless like Rothko tier art, and like I just don't know. Like that's why I sold my my Fidenza, because I was
that's
like
exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, like having like Fidenzas and ringers, squiggles, stuff like that. Those are the ones where like right now I'm questioning, like, do I even really care to like continue to hold these, because I'm someone who likes to be active with my capital, and it's like just all of this excess capital is just kind of sitting there. So it's like, why aren't I putting it to work?
Ones where like I straight up turned down, like, and in retrospect, probably not a great decision. Like 80 ETH offers and stuff like that. But yeah, like I was doing the math on some of this art and the unit bias messes with you, where you're like, oh, dude, 80 ETH, 80, that's not bad.
Trust me, I had like 200 and something ETH offers on some of these Fidenzas, and like in retrospect, you're like, you're not even, you just aren't thinking clearly at those times, because everything is so inflated that it throws off like where it actually started at. You're like, yeah, everything is this much, so it makes sense. Well, like your rationale is that just like the floor of everything is high, so this has to be this high because it's that much better than the other things.
Yeah, and like the math, I did some like comp analysis, and because I was like, I'm a fan of
such a bad,
I don't know, like futurism art, which is from like, I don't know, early 1900s, and I was like looking at some like Sotheby's sales for Umberto Buccioni. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but some of his like paintings, like the dude's dead, hasn't paid that many things. And it's like, well, how much is that? It's like $110,000. I'm like, well, how much ETH is that right now? Like at the time, I was like, that was less than 50 ETH. And for like a Fidenza, where it's like, this is one of, I think it's like 1,000 or something like that. For an artist that's still alive, still putting out art, it's just really hard to buy in at that point and expect a lot of capital appreciation. Like you'd need this to literally be considered like, a Picasso or something like that in the future. And it's like, well, maybe one of these is, but surely not every single one of these things trading at those levels is. So
and that is kind of the question. Like, does something like a Fidenza, because of the, I think not only like its kind of provenance and the like social impact it had on Ethereum. Like you could say NFTs, but really it was like Ethereum, because that was one of the main narratives on Ethereum at the time. So you have something like Fidenza and Tyler Hobbs, and like, what happens when he passes away? Do those become hyper valuable because of the impact they had on the Ethereum community and like NFTs at that time? Squiggles, I think, is another one that could have like an argument like that, even though there's 10,000. Like, you've heard me say it like a ton, like, me and Burry talking about how like squiggles are like the punks of art blocks, and like
Yeah,
like having squiggles is like your leverage bet on like the art blocks index kind of.
it's
Um,
weird. Squiggles probably have the worst art, but it's the one I've kept the most of all the art blocks.
they're fucking awesome. They're the best like meme ever. Like if you remember when they first like were out, we were just like laughing about how how they moved, like we're like, I bet nobody knows that they
Yeah,
moved.
yeah,
And nobody
exactly.
did.
They
Like
animate.
really nobody knew that they moved. So then we were like, I bet you did know that you could change the background colors too, and like then people were figuring out that like, they had like these different layers and elements to them. But that was what was funny, that like if you showed someone it, they're like, it's just a squiggly line, and you're like, yeah, I know. Isn't it cool? And like
Well,
it
the
would it
best
would
was
make
like
people so angry.
asking a normal. Well, now what do you think people are paying for that right now? And yeah, just to mess with people, it's kind of funny to see the guesses. They're usually nowhere near it. I don't know. Squiggles have like a pretty special place in my heart because I thought I was being clever, and I was like, oh, what if Artblocks does a token, and then what if OpenSea does a token? So I'm just gonna like load up 20 wallets, and I'm just gonna buy like, at the time these squiggles were like 0.1 or 0.15 ETH, and ETH was like $1,000 back then. And so I bought a squiggle in each in each wallet, and I never got an Artblock start airdrop, and I never got an OpenSea airdrop, but it still worked out just fine.
I think technically we got plenty of art block airdrop.
Yeah, books, Blur, I don't know what else. Oh, I can't even think of the name of it now. Botto, remember Botto?
I remember Vado very well.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was like really close with those guys, and had worked with them like previous to them kind of venturing more into like DeFi native projects. Um, and Bato's still doing things. They're like
yeah.
on a
Oh,
new season. They've been
I'm
Yeah,
go
still
ahead.
staking my Botto. I'm still voting on the different the different images. It's just fun.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun, and I don't know if it was the last mint or the week before that, but it was really cool. It was like,
they got featured on one of the major news outlets in the last like week or so.
yeah. So yeah, shout out to them. They've been kicking for almost 2 years now, I think.
Yeah, and they're still putting up like decent results on their little it's either weekly or bi-weekly auction. I think the last one was like 5 or 6 ETH, which that's not nothing in this environment.
They were like truly the first kind of art project to tap into the AI meta before it became a meta.
Yeah, we just
Yeah.
need artificial general intelligence to come about, get nostalgic, and start bidding up the first AI art pieces.
Well, that was that first one. I think I'm trying to think if it went for like 100 ETH or maybe even higher. Like
They were
the first
printing, dude.
the first one got bid up really hard, and probably for something similar to like that thesis, like owning the very first you know AI generative art project that could have provenance like on Ethereum.
This was like way before like the mid journeys and stuff came out. Like
Yep.
it's an
Yeah,
interesting time. Things moved so fast back then.
there were a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of
like
DAOs bidding on that piece. And like I think the first like few, that came out, there were a handful of DAOs that were kind of going back and forth on them.
yeah, and it's crazy to see because I've been following Mid Journey and some of these initial like general adversarial network
Mhm.
art like algorithms, and the progress they've made in just like the last like 2 to 3 years is just insane.
Yeah, like
You're talking to the
it's
right
moving
guy,
so
DK.
fast. By the end of this year, like you'll be able to create anything.
DK is a prompt engineer, and he's pretty fucking good at it.
Yeah, I like all the premium assets that we use now. I I gen.
Really, they
Yeah,
look good.
yeah, for the most part. I think we have a few that we just hired an illustrator for recently, like within the last week. But all the ones on the website right now, Premium Blue. I genned all those, and I was spending like at least $20 in credits a day. So I was like topping up daily on my mid journey. But yeah, I was spending probably 6 hours a day in doing image gen. And so that's how
Oh,
I was able.
there's our little prompt engineer. Why don't you
Yeah,
come downstairs and tell everyone how you've
yeah.
been
My
using
my
AI to
cloud
generate women?
costs. Oh, not even just image gen, but like my cloud cost this month will probably be like $4,000, including all of my OpenAI API credits,
Jeez.
Cohere. You know, $4,000 is. I feel like I'm putting out the work of like 3 people. So
Look, I appreciate you buying credits. Truly,
yeah, as an
truly, I do.
investor in OpenAI.
I need to start, like, I just haven't like started putting in the reps of like actually incorporating all this stuff into my workflow. I think I'm just kind of bitter on like Chat GPT because I have to like edit letters, and sometimes I can see it on some of these blogs, like when something
Oh,
very
for sure.
clearly has been written and like not edited from
Yeah,
Chat GPT.
vanilla
Like,
vanilla OpenAI like ChatGPT stuff is like I because I see it so often now. It's super easy to tell, and I think everyone can tell easily. But it's just kind of now I feel like almost cringy when I read like an article that's like strictly OpenAI generated, because I'm like, this person didn't go back and like rephrase tone and like do any sort of like custom training and stuff. So like now I'm starting to get into like the Lang chain, the custom tuning, right? Like renting GPUs for a few hours to do like tuning on my own voice, and not like my speaking voice, but like my writing voice, my writing
Long
voice, my
render.
writing tone, and like, because I'm like, I don't know, I'm generating so much stuff, and it's like, this is the stuff I like, this stuff I don't like, this is how I'm having it go back and edit it, and now I have like this large data set of stuff that I like the way that it sounds, and so now I'm going into the renting a few GPUs for, I don't know, you can get a few GPUs for like $50 for like 4 hours to do some fine tuning on your own LLM model. Like it's so fast. It's gonna literally slap people in the face in like 1 year's time, when people were like, oh, it was a craze in 2023, and in 2024 like all the jobs are gone, right? So
How much
I am
render do you
waiting
own?
for. I do think we're going to get like the mother of all bubbles in terms of like AI. Like it'll be like the internet bubble, like at least. And so I'm just keeping my eye out for, and I'm going to trust you to just show me anything you ever see in crypto that's actually trying something new with AI, because I'd be very interested. But yeah, like you can tell when something's been written by ChatGPT because it's like 10 times longer than necessary and just a complete chore to read.
How much render do you own, DK?
RNDR?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. What is that right now? I remember I bought it, I think at like 7, sold at like 21. I want to say I used to own a lot of render.
Wait,
Back when
dollars?
they had one of the directors they partnered with.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm talking about? Like 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I got really excited. I've been mining render for I don't even know how long, like years. Um, I got into their like beta mining, I don't know, like group like years ago.
You should try to
And
sign up for Jensen or whatever, the A16Z guys. Basically, it sounds like they're just doing render, but for specifically machine learning.
all right, I'm gonna message
It's
them.
There's no token yet, but like it's in beta.
I don't know. I sold my RNDR. I don't know when it mooned hard over a period of time. It was like shortly after they had partnered with a director, and I haven't looked back since. I applied to be to get allocated, because I don't know if it's open now, but back in the day you had to apply for them to allocate resources to your machine, and that's about as far as I got.
Yeah, I'm a resource provider. You can borrow my GPUs
I was just looking at the
over
price
the
now. It's like
MLS.
back at $1. So bear market things.
Bear market things. Yeah, I think render is one of the. It's such a sleeper too. Like I don't see very many people talk about it, but every once in a while I see someone who um, I usually have pretty respectable takes that will say something about it. And that's actually what's let me know that it's even like still alive. I haven't.
It's a niche thing, and you don't really know that it's like a problem unless you're doing stuff that needs compute for rendering.
Well, the thing I wonder about, because I saw like some table, some render bowls, I don't know, circulating, where it was talking about, well, if you actually use the render service, it's like 1/10 the cost of renting GPUs on AWS.
Mm-hmm.
But I see 10 people talk about that, and then like I see people talk about actually using GPUs for training, but they all just use like AWS or if they're in like a corporation like Azure or something like that. And no one ever, like I've never run into someone that actually rented like render GPUs. And you'd think with all these like startups then and like the kind of shortage in, I guess the shortage is in like A100s, not like GPUs, but you would think there'd be somebody arbing that out if it's real. I don't know. So like that either tells me it's not real or it's not liquid.
I think that the
could also be comfortability, like you're, you know,
they're definitely not at 100% utilization right now. Like even though there is a shortage in terms of the production of those chips, the ones that are in use aren't at 100% capacity. So like you can get them on off times for like relatively cheap. And there's a bunch of platforms that are like, you know, tapped into that.
Okay. So like, yeah, because I was like, I don't know. That just doesn't, it seemed like for something that people are looking for, which is like all this like compute capacity, like there was like this hidden resource where it's like super cheap storage. I don't know, all these decentralized storage providers, super cheap decentralized compute and GPU availability that like somebody would be using it and then just like closing that arb, but I guess not.
Yeah, AWS is always like more expensive, but I don't know for the AI fine tuning. I guess if you're a big corporate, you probably need a lot more. But if you're just doing like for a homebrew project, it'll cost you $60 and 3 hours of tuning.
It's just easier, I imagine, to use AWS. Yeah. I don't know. It
seems
like
you just go to one of these places that has that. I mean, it's interesting to see that you're starting to see the acquisition space, especially for like some of the like the Vercells, like these big hostings, right? So like the Vercells, the Ocean one, Blue Ocean or Open Ocean or whatever it's called.
DigitalOcean.
You're starting to see them like acquiring companies that just have these chips, right? That like got them already early just so that they can utilize that compute and turn it into a product onto the massive hosting sites. Instead of like there's no real native value in the actual company. It's just the fact that okay, there's a 2-year backlog on getting these A100s or the H's or whatever they're at now. So we're just going to acquire this company because we can get to market faster with this product and we'll probably cover the costs by the time that we would hit the backlog anyways.
I mean, what's funny is CoreWeave, which is like one of the larger, I guess, acquirers and sources of these GPUs, the A100s and H100s, they used to be like just a good giant Ethereum miner. And they were like kind of like the original crypto to AI pivotor. It actually worked out for them, but I think that's kind of funny.
Yeah, I also think that the proof of, I think maybe one of the reasons maybe render hasn't done so well is because the move to proof of stake has freed up a lot of general purpose GPUs that you could use for rendering, 3D objects and not for AI purposes, but just like videos, 3D gaming, whatever.
You would have thought that would have at least for like crypto miners, right, that were looking for something new, that they would have then just gone, okay, I will, if I'm not selling my GPUs, I'll allocate resources so that I'm still, kind of spec mining something. I miss those days. It was fun. Like go download some new fucking software, mine some new obscure chain, to a new obscure wallet that, it's not listed anywhere. You're just waiting for some listing. Like,
yeah, I have like a whole separate like segregated machine that did that because I was just afraid because I'm just downloading all these random like .bat file or whatever to just Yeah, just run it, whatever. Let's raw dog it.
My
Like this.
whole like laundry room area, it was like one half of it was just
That's how he drew. That's how he dried his
index.
clothes.
No, for real though, like it was we didn't need to turn on the heat in the winter. Like it being there was right by where a lot of the like air ventilation pathways kind of joined. So it would push up that vent and then it would blow onto the first floor and some of it would make it to my second floor. So it was like 80 something in my house, you know, in the winter time with all this going on. And then in the summertime, if you'd go out and look at my electric meter, it looked like it was like racing, you know, to get around back to one. It was I've never seen something go so fast.
All right, we got 7 minutes left. Let's spend the last 7 minutes talking about the future of on-chain trading. So obviously Unibot started the whole meta. Actually, did Unibot started? Did Maestro started? I don't know.
Maestro was first. It was
Yeah.
just that Unibot had a token, and that's the thing that crypto users like more than anything else. So it was a big competitive advantage for them, even while not having the product that was used more. I think like for a lot of Unibot's run, people are still using Maestro like a lot more.
Do you think that, so we saw a bunch of stuff, especially with like the IRS taxation policies in the US, that like if you're providing these kinds of services, then you need to potentially log some of these transactions. Do you, I personally think that this is like the terminal trading or non-native web-based utilization of a platform will be the future, where you're having like either a Unibot with the plugins for multiple different sites, not just like a DEX.
You need it with Parsec, like a Unibot Parsec interface where I'm able to see like the fire hose flow of transactions that are coming through, the details of the holders, you know, buys and sells, how they're weighted over the last, you know, different time intervals. With my terminal to be able to fire off, you know, my limit orders or spot buy sells that I'm doing, like that would be, I think, an addition that would bring in a different type of sticky user base.
Yeah, I haven't done a lot of research in this myself, but I think that Flowmatic is trying to do something like that. Kind of integrate all these together, so it has like the charting, native the charting, like Parsec has, but then also the trading interface as well. And like you put in a private key, you like download an app natively or locally on your machine, and then you put in a private key, you fund it, and then you can do all of your trading, all of your click trading through this like interface. I think that's the future. Makes sense. It makes sense to me.
It's a better experience than, find the
Swapping.
contract address, paste in a DeFi llama or whatever,
Yeah.
and like, choose your slippage, pick, there's a lot of stuff that can be abstracted away to provide like kind of a better user experience for people that just wanna ape. And like I think like good.
Devil's advocate, right? For like that fits and feeds one type of specific user base, but what about like the real retail user? Do you think that they adapt to this tool suite because that's what people use, or do you think that they still use native, you know,
What if
protocol
it's
apps?
just like a Coinbase app you download and you fund, but it's
What I mean
like,
is that like you know, trading with a command line is a much different experience than going to a website and having like a proper web 2 kind of user journey, if that makes sense.
yeah, but I think that you can bridge the gap. I honestly think you can give a Web2 experience in crypto. Like, I mean, I've been
We
beating
saw
the
it
drum
with
for forever.
I mean, we're seeing it right now with FinTech,
Yeah.
where it's like there's ways to do account recovery, account abstraction without having to even know what a private key is, and funding through like traditional fiat on rails.
That's
And
not what I'm
then,
talking about, though, right?
yeah,
Like, imagine if for friend tech, the way that you used it was slash fund at da 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 or slash buy. You know, like everything was terminal based, like that style
When
of.
I say trading terminal, I mean like
like Bloomberg.
TradFi.
I
Yeah.
know what you're talking about. I'm
Okay.
I'm I'm talking like specifically about like how Unibot like
You're talking
works
like
and functions right
CLI.
now. I'm talking about
I don't
typing
think
in
CLI
terminal.
interfaces have a future. Um, I think a unified experience in which I've been beating the
Yeah,
intent
yeah. I
drum
know
for
you're talking
forever.
more on like the super app type of thing.
Yeah. I
I
think
think
that
there's
And I'm with you on that. Like I totally think that like the dashboards are more the way where, you know, there's
exactly
an
dashboard. Yeah.
aggregator of an aggregator. You know, it's like the spot aggregator, your options, like everything's there to where you're just getting the best price, and you know you're not needing to worry about that, or you're able to see an order book of you know everything that's in the aggregator, for each of these, you know, whatever your preferred or chosen like apps that you want to have display are.
Yeah, I think there's like a world where like the Coinbase wallet has some of the like sign up features that like Friendex does now, fiat on ramp because they're already in exchange. And then it's kind of like, hey, you know, we have our listings, we have our regular things that are kind of curated and probably aren't going to go to zero tomorrow. But, you know, if you want to try to find the next Pepe before it's listed, you know, you had this experience where if you were on chain, there was an opportunity to buy this token that went from like, you know, a million market cap to a billion, but you missed the first, you know, one to, wow, that was like 500, $600 million market cap of that if you weren't on chain and had to wait for it to be listed on an exchange.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a world where they like kind of like implement some of these account abstraction features to make it a lot more like just a TradFi or traditional, you know, graphic user interface trading experience where you're not really worried about contracts and all that other stuff. And most of the stuff will go to zero, but you know, they're you know, in the height of the last bull market, you know, there are TikToks talking about how to fund your BSC MetaMask wallet to ape SafeMoon. So
Yeah,
people
that's
jump through
true.
the hoops, and we're making the hurdles a lot lower.
Yeah, I talked about that before. There was like a group of older guys that I talk with that were all aping. I was in a group chat with them, and they were all like aping BSC stuff. I mean, I've talked to you guys about them in the chat, like, but they're all aping all these BSC shitters, and I'm like, dude, how do you even know what this is? Like, you barely know what MetaMask is, but you know, when
I
there's
I talked
high
to
profit on the table, they will
yeah.
learn to get from A to D, and it doesn't matter what B and C was.
Well, I talked to a friend who does some like consulting for like funds, and he has like another friend who's like older dude, not crypto native whatsoever. And if I gave you one guess, you could probably guess what token he had somehow acquired a large position of.
XRP.
Hex.
Oh.
And he was like wondering how to cash in. And I'm like, well, do you have a Coinbase account? He's like, no. I'm like, how did this even happen?
I also think
OTC.
that the legalization of sports gambling in the U.S. has kind of expedited a lot of or accelerated a lot of this degenerate behavior too. It's more normalized, even though sports obviously is a much bigger industry. I think that just this like I was at a fantasy football draft last night and like they're just like throwing money around at all these different sports bets.
As they should. I don't think that I have a contrarian take that as an adult, I don't think you should be watching sports. I think it's like a total waste of time if you're not betting on it. Like if you're not making money on the game that's happening, then like I think it's a total waste of your time.
You know, it's
Obviously,
irrational, but a lot of the best things in life are. So
Not saying that there's not entertainment to it or that like, you know, you couldn't go and enjoy it with your family, so find some value. But if it's just you like sitting on your couch watching like a sports game and you don't have a and you're not betting on it, then like yeah, it's like just another form of mind slavery.
I say the same thing about video games nowadays.
Well, see, I play with my son, so like I have a reason
As you said,
to.
it's a family experience.
Yeah.
But if you're not playing pro, then it's what are you wasting your time doing? I'm just kidding. I love video games.
I'm not going to show my stats on stream.
Look, on paper, there's no reason I should be watching 20 to 30 Knicks games a year. I'm aware of this. I have a problem. I realize it, and I'm not going to fix it.
1v1 me, bro. 1v1 me, DK. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I mean, I played sports my whole life, and I used to be the one to like go to every sports game, and then when I became I don't know, profit maxi, I just like I stopped playing games. I stopped watching as much sports and doing stuff like that because it was like there are so many opportunities that you'll miss by just not being aware of like what's taking place.
I,
So if I'm not, so that like if I wasn't, like if a family friend or a family member or like close friend wasn't coming into town and we weren't going to where the sports game is now an experience and like has value, then like me deciding I'm going to waste 3 hours watching guys fake fall on the ground uh, seems like a waste of time compared to what I could have been doing.
yeah, there's a place where you can like over optimize your life, and I think like having like a profit maximalization attitude is smart, but I think you balance it with and if you ever play The Sims, you do that with your sim. It's
Talk
gonna get
about this
miserable. It's gonna
briefly,
start he's gonna have like a breakdown and start crying on the floor. So I think there needs to be a balance between, and it's a way to look at like all the activities you do between profit maximization and happy maximization. Like watching the Knicks play in the playoffs, that doesn't make me any money. And even if I'm not doing it, like sitting there watching it with my dad, does it make me happy? Yes. Does burning 5 to 10 hours playing Zelda make me happy? Yeah, it does. So it's got to be one of those two criteria, though, and I think that is a good way to judge like how you're spending kind of your days.
Yeah, you made a great point, right? Like, because like you said, am I spending it watching with my dad? And like, the time that we have left with our parents and family and stuff like that is like something that we can't measure. So there's value in like doing those things. I'm more talking about like when you're just alone by yourself, like you could be running, there's so many other things that like provide value to you in some way.
All right. On that point, we're at time. I appreciate you coming on, Top Tick. Love to have you again.
Yeah, that was fun. If it ever lines up with a market holiday again, I'm happy to join. I've been enjoying you guys' podcast, and thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Anytime, Top Tick. That's a wrap. We'll see everyone back tomorrow, 11 EST. Later.